I miss Spider-Man Homecoming. Yeah, that's right, your friendly neighborhood Mithy, this high-top tooting, Troy Boyo fanboying, billionaire loser.
Hell yes.
Loves Spider-Man Homecoming. In fact, he will go as far as to say Spider-Man Homecoming isn't just a good movie, but a good Spider-Man movie. I know, scandalous. Don't get me wrong, I love the Raimi movies and a good portion of the TASM movies. Spider-Man 3, TASM 1, and TASM 2 were 3 movies I had on DVD that are burned into my memories of growing up in the early 2010s. But I still remember the day they announced Spider-Man coming to the MCU. I remember all the fan art and fake leaks that fed the fans for at least a year, and I remember that awing, glorious feeling of watching Spider-Man web up the shield, land on a car, and proclaim to the world,
"Hey everyone."
But the sad thing about reality is we no longer live in that era. With the domination of the MCU and the changes made to the character's portrayal, we now find ourselves in a world at war over the validity of this interpretation. The discussion around Tom Holland's Spider-Man has been irritating at best and poisonous at worst. And if I'm gonna be honest, they all kind of have their reasons. I don't love MCU's Spider-Man.
Alright, this is it. People, let's move. Let's go.
I like Tom Holland and I strongly respect the intense work behind the scenes by the cast and crew from these movies, but this version of the character isn't one I can put upon a pedestal and adore the same way I do with other interpretations. With Far From Home and with No Way Home hinging heavily on this massive multiversal adventure, there seems to be a lack of attention to the deeper potential of the character, from the stress that comes with the high school relationship drama to his friendly neighborhood nature and the influence of his Uncle Ben. And it's not like Far From Home doesn't try, but in execution I feel like it doesn't exactly land on its feet. So why am I out here, a dumb YouTuber getting a rise out of Tom Holland stands, sitting here and telling you that I hold some love for an MCU Spider-Man movie? What makes Homecoming so different? For the past 5 years, I've sat down and watched this movie get a lot of crap I don't think it deserves. So I think it's finally time that I came back to this film I've enjoyed and will keep enjoying as a lens into my past. Normally with these kinds of videos, I have a distinct set of arguments and opinions to go through, but this time around, I kind of just want to sift through the movie for its hidden gems in a much more chronological fashion. So without further ado, let me tell you why I miss. This movie opens with something I don't think enough people pay attention to. A drawing of the Avengers, done by Adrian Toomes' daughter. Marvel is all about viewing the world through normal people turned superheroes, but after nearly 10 years of watching this world from the skies and the stars, we finally get a viewpoint from an actual normal dude with a normal job. And we get to see how the gods among them influence and in turn hurt the day-to-day lives of normal people. No, it's not as flashy as something like Superman glowing through the clouds, but it's to a similar effect. Big and powerful men affect the little guys, and sometimes that effect goes unnoticed. Let's not talk about that part. I think a lot of the unsung strengths of Spider-Man Homecoming comes from its first act and its pacing. We start the film with the most Peter Parker-esque mini-series of vlogs, with this guy having one of the coolest experiences of his life. And as he transitions to the normal boredom of day-to-day school, we experience that whiplash with him. When he gets out of class and puts on the suit, we feel that excitement with him. It's not hidden off camera. We watch him rush to get his costume on and jump into the real world, ready to become more than just a student at Midtown High. Additionally, the way we shift from plot point to plot point feels more balanced than a lot of the other entries in the MCU. His Spider-Manning leads to the armed bank robbers, and his crush on Liz with the invitation to the party leads to him investigating the arms trade, ending the act with our first confrontation with the Vulture. Sure, it's a basic storytelling principle, but threading these events together like this helps us stay with Peter longer, meaning that by the end of this act, we already feel close with our main character. The first act of the film is slow, but needfully so, as we get this time to really understand how the little moments of life influence our Spider-Man's grand journey going into. First off, I gotta say, this scene right here, that's good tension building, and no one really talks about it enough. The second act takes us to Washington, D.C., and although I'm not a fan of taking Spidey too far out of New York, I think the set piece of the monument puts him in an interesting situation, trying to save his friends in a place he isn't exactly known or respected. We got some nice environments on a running truck, the monument itself, and the elevator shaft, which gives me the vibes of a classic Spider-Man rescue from some of the other movies. It's a fun scene, great for the trailers too. I like the web wings. Going past the runtime's midpoint, we get to the ferry, which contains some of what are probably probably my favorite action bits in the whole film. It's really satisfying to see Peter comfortably use his gadgets, stand off with the main villain, and get down with a case of classic Parker luck once again. The moment Spidey tries to keep the fairy together is the height of his intensity. Throughout the course of this film, we see Peter's want to stop the Vulture becoming a need, a proof of validation, and this scene shows us how far Peter is willing to go to be that hero. The film uses Peter's arrogance to justify Iron Man's actions, so when Tony comes into the picture, we understand why he has to take the suit away, even if we're still rooting for our hero to finish the job.
I just wanted to be like you.
And I wanted you to be better.
A big criticism of Spider-Man Homecoming is a general lack of consequences for Peter's actions, and that he seems to get away scot-free with every misstep he takes. I get where that comes from, but I still don't 100% agree. While we may not see the full societal ramifications of a kid missing his decathlon, I think we get to see enough of Peter's emotional reactions to those events to resonate with us. When Tony tells him he wanted him to be better, we feel that because we know why Tony feels this way. When May's upset with him, we understand why, because we see how much she cares for his safety. We don't need to see our hero get slapped in the face, but we just need him to feel it. With the end of the second act, we watch him hang up the suit for just a little bit and come back to the real world. For a brief moment, Spider-Man is no more. But Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and no matter what, that will never change. The third act of Spider-Man Homecoming is what defines this movie to me. It's my favorite part of the film, and I struggle to sit down and watch a single scene from this part without feeling immersed in Peter's story.
He must be Peter.
Everyone's talked about how this twist is perfect and how Michael Keaton's Adrian Toomes shines as one of the most imposing villains in the MCU. But to me, it's more than that. It starts from the opening of the door itself. In all the past Spider-Man movies, Peter in some way, shape, or form faces off against a villain with some kind of personal connection to him. However, we usually start with that personal connection, let that relationship build, and then turn to villainy. This has worked time and time again for a lot of these movies, but I like that this movie starts with the villain and works backwards instead. Toomes being Liz's father comes out of absolutely nowhere, so it hits us just as hard as it hits Peter. Throughout the picture scene, we're constantly in fear about how this Bruce Wayne looking asshole is gonna tear Peter Parker a new one. And we're also thinking through the ramifications this entire situation is gonna have on those relationships Peter's worked so hard to develop. When it comes to the talk, we are on the edge of our seats, terrified.
Hey. I just saved your life. Know what do you say?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What a brilliant scene. In just a few words, we bring both these characters back down to reality, giving Toomes a moment to be genuine with Peter, treating him like a man, not just a nuisance. He knows Peter's a good kid, but he still must do what he believes to be right for his family. But in a way, they're not that different. I think Peter realizes this, that deep down, Toomes really does think he's doing what's right for his family, for Liz. But again, just like Toomes, Peter must do what he believes to be right for the people of New York, for the people closest to him, and for Toomes himself.
Gotta go. I'm sorry. You don't deserve this.
With great power comes great responsibility. This movie doesn't need to mention Uncle Ben for us to understand what this gift of heroism means to Peter. We see it in his actions. He sacrifices the dance to go be the hero, but this time it's not to impress anyone else. It's a selfless act of courage. At the beginning of his journey, he was looking to actively stop the Vulture in his tracks and hand him over to the big boys, but now all of that has changed. He's here to save Toomes.
Wait! This is gonna explode!
When the weapons are about to destroy him, the same weapons he stole, without a second's hesitation, Peter weaves through the burning sand, pulling him from the rubble, saving him. That's the friendly neighborhood hero, protecting everyone he can. In the midst of the trauma, the pain, and the struggle this poor 16-year-old kid has gone through, he still finds a way to get up, to stand tall, and become Spider-Man. The end of this film presents Peter with an opportunity, a dream he's been chasing ever since that spider bit him so long ago, to leave the whims of his roots behind and become an Avenger, to become something more. But with great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man has the power to make that human connection, with the bodega owner at the corner store, with a street vendor selling newspapers, with the troubled convict taking ice cream home for his nephew, and the blue-collar worker, out of a job, doing what he thinks is right for his daughter. Becoming an Avenger means leaving that responsibility behind, looking away from the neighborhood and up at the sky. And Spider-Man will never look the other way again.
You turning me down? You better think about this. Look at that. Look at me. Last chance, yes or no?
No.
Okay.
Peter walks away, grateful to Tony for everything, but satisfied with his decision. He's a good kid, and now he's a good man. He walks away, smiling. I love Spider-Man Homecoming. I watched it as a kid, right as I was about to enter my sophomore year of high school, just like Peter. That's always meant something to me. This movie was the most I felt represented in any Spider-Man movie, and no matter what happens with this character in the future, nothing will ever change how I feel about this film. But the thing that pains me the most is that so many people just glue this and Far From Home together as one big thing, criticizing this movie for the faults of his sequel. For some reason, I just can't do that. These two movies feel so different to me, and because of that, I feel so weird discussing my criticisms on this adaptation of the character. Put simply, I consider Homecoming a great movie. I just wish I could say the same about a sequel. Far From Home Spider-Man is considered by many to be a surrogate to Iron Man, privileged with immense luck and overly supportive friends, unburdened by some of the realistic struggles we want to see within the character. But do these problems stem from our understanding of Tom Holland's Peter Parker, or are these underlying problems with how the MCU has adapted Spider-Man? I've thrown back and forth on this line ever since I started watching YouTube video essays back in 2018. How much does comic accuracy dictate the quality of these films? See, here's the thing. Comic accuracy doesn't determine quality. If you give a person the name of Spider-Man, the general look of Spider-Man, the feeling of Spider-Man, that person is Spider-Man. I don't care if it's a book, a movie, a TV show, a short film, or even an audio podcast on Audible. The IP may belong to Sony and Marvel, but the essence, that feeling, and that sensation of Spider-Man can belong to any form of adaptation. But to me, the strength of the adaptation isn't in how much it stays loyal to the source material. It's in how it takes the source material and elevates it to its own advantage. Adaptations are about molding the original works to suit a new purpose, not directly copying what came before. And yet every other day I see someone on the Dumb Bird site show up and cite how something in one of these movies is stupid because it's different from a comic that came out back in 1973. 1973, guys, come on. The Dark Knight isn't a good movie because Batman saves the Joker or because Harvey gets his face melted like he did in the comics. The Dark Knight is a good movie because on a script level, the directors and screenwriters understand the core behind what defines The Long Halloween and The Killing Joke, taking portions that resonate with them and adding something unique to fix together the puzzle pieces of storytelling. Beyond that, these adaptations, at the end of the day, are movies. And the most important thing a movie can do above anything else is just be a good damn movie. So then why am I sitting here rambling about the MCU's Spider-Man and how it disappoints me? Well, because my problems with these interpretations aren't from the comics. It's from the tonal inconsistency from these movies. I don't care that Mysterio's an Iron Man spinoff. I don't care that his Aunt Nosey's Spider-Man. And honestly, I don't even care about Uncle Ben. Yeah, I said it, but I do care about Homecoming. I miss Homecoming, and seeing that the sequel drastically changes the tone of the story, that disappoints me. I'm disappointed that May, a character so concerned with the well-being of Peter, actively wants her son to put himself in danger. I'm disappointed that after standing his ground as a friendly neighborhood superhero, Peter treats the Avengers and Tony Stark as the end goal still, letting these forces define his decisions. And most importantly, I'm so disappointed that the scope of these stories have taken to the skies, obsessed over international locations, Avengers-level threats, and multiversal stakes, when the strength of this character was when he was on the ground, being there for the little guy, helping people around him, saving them from their worst selves. Watching Far From Home didn't make me feel excited for the future of this franchise. It just made me want to crawl back into the past, when I felt like the story of this character was really about something special. The grand multiversal sense of scale and adventure in this universe is still something to behold, but it feels nothing like the tale of the boy turned hero who learned to stand up for his community, his friends, and finally himself. I loved Spider-Man Homecoming because I saw myself, and I miss it because I no longer do.